Welcome to this explainer. Whenever we look at research, whether it's a massive scientific breakthrough, an economic report, or just the latest market trends, that information relies on a pretty fascinating dual approach to gather and interpret data. Today, we're breaking down the absolute foundation of how we measure reality. We're going to explore the vital mechanisms that researchers use to literally analyze our world. And by the end of our time together, you're going to have a sharpened, way more analytical lens for viewing the information you interact with every single day. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do we measure reality? It's kind of the core mystery of all research, right? When we attempt to gather and analyze information about our world, we've got to start by measuring it in some capacity. But reality is incredibly complex. To capture a world full of hard facts and super nuanced human behavior, research relies on two totally distinct approaches. These two methodologies serve entirely different yet equally vital purposes in analysis and interpretation. Understanding them is the absolute key to decoding any study, poll, or scientific paper you might bump into.
So, meet our very first approach, quantitative data. Think of this as the precise, objective numbers nerd of the research world. Everything here is expressed in distinct, concrete units, leaving absolutely zero room for subjective interpretation. This absolute precision is the engine that drives rigorous statistical analysis. By converting observations into standardized mathematical units, researchers can effectively strip away bias. It's brilliant because it allows them to test specific hypotheses with a high degree of confidence and ultimately make broad, reliable generalizations about massive populations without actually needing to evaluate every single individual.
To really ground this concept, just consider these distinct metrics: standardized exam scores dictating state educational funding, precise income levels shaping federal tax policy, exact population counts determining political representation, and global temperature readings driving climate legislation. These aren't just random, isolated numbers. They're extremely precise figures gathered through highly structured instruments. We're talking about large-scale standardized surveys where variables are strictly controlled, tightly managed laboratory experiments, and highly calibrated scientific tools. The entire goal here is to quantify the world into hard data points that can be plugged right into predictive models.
But as we all know, numbers alone rarely tell the complete story. And that brings us to qualitative data. If quantitative is the numbers nerd, qualitative is our nuanced storyteller. This approach is highly descriptive, inherently subjective, and deeply, deeply contextual. Instead of just counting units and charting frequencies, qualitative data captures meanings, human experiences, and personal perspectives. It provides that profound depth regarding culture, motivation, and social phenomena that statistics simply cannot capture on their own. While a number can tell you that a trend is happening, this qualitative approach is designed to figure out the complex human reasons driving that trend from the inside out. Let's move to and see how this builds, because the tools used to gather this rich, contextual information look entirely different from those standardized surveys we just mentioned. We aren't looking at spreadsheets or data nodes anymore. We're looking at pages of deep interview transcripts, extensively detailed case studies, photographs that capture a specific cultural moment, and open-ended survey responses, where individuals really articulate their lived reality. Researchers collect this by stepping out of the controlled laboratory environment and into the messy, real world. They sit down for prolonged one-on-one interviews, they moderate dynamic focus groups, and they conduct quiet, careful observations of people right in their natural environments.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it directly pits their opposing natures against each other in this great data face-off. The core distinction between these two approaches lies entirely in their underlying intent. It's a constant balancing act in the research world. On one side, quantitative data is on a relentless quest for precision, scale, and wide-ranging generalizability. On the exact opposite side, qualitative data searches deeply for richness, nuance, and localized insight. One methodology seeks the hard, undeniable facts to apply broadly to the masses. The other seeks the subjective truth and intricate context of the individual experience. They are two fundamentally opposed ways of viewing exactly the same world.
When we actually evaluate their respective strengths and limitations side by side, the contrast is stark. Quantitative data's absolute superpower is its objectivity. If we're tracking GDP or national rainfall metrics, this objective structure allows for powerful, reliable statistical modeling. But in its rigorous pursuit of cold numbers, it completely strips away the underlying human context. It simply can't tell you how a recession actually feels to a family. Qualitative data, on the other hand, relies on instruments like diaries and photo essays to offer immense cultural depth and personal context. Yet, its inherent limitation is its subjectivity. You just cannot easily generalize one person's profound experience to predict the behavior of an entire global population.
So the crucial point is this. If you take away just one central heuristic from our analysis today, let it be this exact distinction. Quantitative data answers the questions how much or how many. Qualitative data answers the questions why or how. Honestly, it's the cleanest, most efficient way to distinguish their unique purposes in the real world. Whenever you're presented with a piece of research, simply asking yourself whether the data is answering a how many question or a why question will immediately clarify the methodology being used and, just as importantly, the limitations of that specific study.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate resolution in modern research, mixed methods integration, because these approaches complement each other so perfectly, each one effectively illuminating the other's blind spots. Combining them creates an unbeatable partnership. By rigorously utilizing both types of data within a single study, researchers can achieve a truly holistic view of reality. They can statistically prove that a broad phenomenon is occurring across a population using robust quantitative data and simultaneously explain exactly why it's happening using contextually meaningful qualitative insights. This team-up has really become the gold standard, proving that combining structural precision with human depth creates the most accurate picture of our world.
You see, the distinction between these types of data isn't just some dry academic exercise. It intimately shapes the news you consume, the products you buy, and the macro policies that govern our society. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. The next time you see a statistic in an article or a headline, will you ask for the story behind the numbers? Will you actively look for the qualitative why to match the quantitative how many? If you apply this analytical lens to your everyday life, I promise you it will completely change how you interpret the world around you. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep asking great questions, and I'll see you on the next Explainer.